At the time of recording, there are a total of 14 Star Trek movies. Both Star Trek fans and non-Trekkie film enthusiasts largely agree on one thing. The even-numbered Star Trek movies tend to be good, while the odd-numbered ones tend to be not so good. To me, that seems like an overgeneralization. I wanted to express my own takes on all the movies in two different videos, one for the even numbers and one for the odds. This video will be about the latter, which includes Star Trek the Motion Picture, The Search for Spock, The Final Frontier, Generations, Insurrection, Star Trek 2009, and Star Trek Beyond. Spoilers for all those movies up ahead. I'll go one at a time, starting with the motion picture. Before I saw this movie, the worst I'd heard about it was that it was boring, for a movie anyway. I will agree that some scenes and shots lasted longer than they needed to, but I didn't think the movie was lacking in story, and certainly not in visuals. I really like how the relationship between Decker and Ilia mirrors that of Kirk and Spock. I also really like Spock's character arc in particular, how he initially sought to purge his emotions, but later discovers how emotion gives life meaning, which he learns from an entity that is entirely incapable of it, rather than him choosing to eliminate it. The sickbay scene with Kirk and Spock holding hands is just beautiful. I do wish they'd included the deleted scene where Spock says that he weeps for V'ger as for a brother. It certainly could have replaced any one of the unnecessarily long shots to fill screen time. The motion picture isn't a perfect movie, and the concept might have worked better for an episode of the original series, but the feature-length runtime of this storyline allows for impactful character development that the episodic TV series couldn't have as easily achieved. I think the movie was a grand comeback for the franchise, and it did its job. Next is Star Trek III: The Search for Spock. I truly thought this one was very good. Leonard Nimoy did such a great job with the directing. I just loved the story, how the Enterprise crew are so loyal to Spock that they take a huge risk to get him back, never giving up no matter how dire things get, because he's their friend and he deserves it. Every individual character gets to have their moment in this movie, and Nimoy specifically made sure of that. He intended the story to be about a family reunited, and I definitely felt that from the finale. The bad guys were honestly pretty fun too. Pretty much the only criticisms I could think of were very minor. It may not seem to make sense that the Klingons would kill David since he had knowledge of the Genesis device, but they did so because he attacked them. They could have done more to explain why Uhura didn't come with the crew and how she got to Vulcan, but other things had to be cut from the movie for time, and I'm sure they'd have addressed that if they could. As for the regenerated Spock going through Pon farr, I think the implication was that Saavik helped him stay mentally stable through it. With him aging rapidly, it would probably pass quickly. Again, I really don't see how this movie would be considered one of the bad ones. After that is Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. Movies 2 through 4 composed what felt like a complete narrative, and then this movie basically came about because Shatner wanted to write and direct a film like Nimoy did. There are definitely some moments in this one that come across as rather silly, but that really doesn't make it any different from many beloved episodes of the original series. People just seem to hold movies to a higher standard than television. I thought The Final Frontier was just fine. It had a lot to live up to since the previous film was so well received, which already kinda put it in a bad position from the get-go. I really enjoyed the emphasis on the relationship between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, how they're all like a family and balance one another out. That was a great concept to make a movie out of. As for the whole Sybok thing, I've heard people say that he could have been Spock's uncle or cousin rather than half-brother, which I do think would have have worked a little better. And they still could have had a variation of the "he's your brother" joke if that were the case, since Kirk might presume that Spock would figuratively refer to other Vulcans as his father's brothers or his cousins. My only major criticism is the depiction of Spock's birth. There would be no reason for it to occur in a cave, and Sarek wouldn't have the reaction he did. I'm choosing to believe that's not what really happened, and Sybok just showed Spock a false vision based on how Spock sees himself. My point is, this movie is far from the worst in the franchise. Then we get to Star Trek Generations, and oh boy, do I have some thoughts about this one. I have so many thoughts on one particular aspect of the narrative that I made an entire video about it. That wasn't the only thing I thought was wrong with this movie, though. There were many things that Generations did seemingly only for dramatic effect. First of all, killing off Picard's brother and nephew was just as meaningless as killing off Kirk. So was crashing the Enterprise D, which fans suspect probably just happened because they wanted to have a new ship for the next movie if there was one. The original Enterprise was destroyed in Star Trek III, but that was for a legitimate reason in-universe and done in a meaningful way. Then there's Data's emotion chip. That whole narrative should have been the A plot of an episode, not the C plot of a movie. Worse, it's played off mostly as comedy when it really could have been a much more endearing character moment for Data. The one serious moment of that narrative was him being too scared to help Geordi, which I thought was out of character for Data. It would have been a much more powerful story moment if Data had conquered his fear right then and there to save his friend. On top of all that was the whole debacle with Soran and the Duras sisters hijacking Geordi's visor as a plot contrivance. So you've got Kirk and Picard trying to stop Soran, the Enterprise fighting off the Klingons, and Data getting emotions for the first time, all in the same movie. None of it is executed well, and it's altogether just not cohesive. Those stories would have all been better as individual TNG episodes. However, the studio wanted to release this movie the same year as the TNG finale, leaving no time to refine the story. So yeah, this one actually is quite bad. Next, we come upon Star Trek Insurrection. Like The Final Frontier, this one was coming off the heels of a very highly praised movie that it was subconsciously being expected to live up to. I did find this movie's story to be meaningful and engaging. The fact that Picard was willing to disobey orders in order to do what he believed was right really speaks to his character, and is consistent with his actions in the Next Generation TV series as well. I liked the scene where all the senior officers catch him sneaking out on the captain's yacht and inform him that they're joining him. The Baku storyline was alright in my opinion. Artem's eventual friendship with Data after he was initially afraid of him was adorable. Gallatin deciding to disobey his superior officer and join Picard was a nice parallel to Picard deciding to do the same thing. The joystick control on the Enterprise was a bit weird, but it kind of makes sense as a really hands-on way to steer the ship using something other than a two-dimensional touchscreen. My least favorite thing in the movie was definitely the boob joke, which was pretty obviously written by a man. Insurrection may not be one of the greatest Star Trek movies and probably should have been a TNG episode instead, but it's not a bad movie, period. Then comes Star Trek 2009, and like Generations, I have a multitude of problems with this one. First and foremost is the supernova that destroyed Romulus. It would have been detected ahead of time and would also not threaten the galaxy. And why would Nero blame Spock for not being able to save Romulus? It's not like Nero did anything to help him. Destroying Romulus in one timeline and Vulcan in another within the same movie also felt excessive, not to mention alternate Spock's mother being fridged. I found it very hard to believe that the main character was supposed to be an alternate version of James Kirk, and the alternate version of Spock is written in a way that really misinterprets the character. Many characters' actions also felt unreasonable, not just Nero's. So yeah, I really don't see what's supposed to be good or appealing about this movie. I went into more detail about it in a separate video. Lastly, at least for now, is Star Trek Beyond. Since I disliked both of this trilogy's first two movies, I was pleasantly surprised to find that I did like this one. Aside from just my personal preferences, I think it was significantly better executed than the previous two films, which probably had a lot to do with it being written and directed by different individuals this time. The plot takes some cues from the original series' better moments without trying to be so derivative like Into Darkness was, while giving every member of the main cast standout character moments. I also think they handled the off-screen death of Spock Prime in a very considerate way. Although I'm still pretty indifferent to the alternate original series as a whole, I can't call this a bad movie. To summarize, I thought movies 1, 3, and 13 were good, 5 and 9 were alright, and 7 and 11 were the only real bad ones. I think this goes to show how you shouldn't prejudge any media based on what you've heard about it, and instead just experience it for yourself and form your own opinions on it. Anyway, what do you think of the odd-numbered Star Trek movies? Do you agree with my assessments of them? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching this video. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss my upcoming video on the even-numbered Star Trek movies and everything else I have planned. Live long and prosper, and I'll see you next time.